Good morning, everyone, and a very, very warm welcome to the 2021 Virtual Partnering with Defence Conference. My name is Jacko, and I'm the Director of Defence Relationship Management. And I have the privilege of leading the team who delivers the Employer Engagement Programme on behalf of the Ministry of Defence, some detail of which I will cover in a moment. To start, though, I would like to outline a few points to ensure we all get the maximum out of today's conference. We have a fantastic and protein-rich agenda with amazing and exceptionally well-qualified speakers, as you can see here. And the agenda is available throughout the conference on the conference website, which is at the address on the slide. This is also where the post-conference feedback survey will be hosted. Please submit all questions using the Q&A function on your screen. If a question has already been submitted that you would also like to hear answered, you can simply like that question by clicking on the thumbs up icon next to the question. Doing that will push the question up the priority list, thereby enhancing the likelihood of the seminar panel directly answering the question, and at the same time making it easier for us to focus on topics you would most like to hear about. I suspect, however, we won't be able to cover in real time every question raised today, but we will cover the most popular topics during the seminar running 11:40 to 12:20. All other questions will either be answered on the Q&A page or, as we are recording throughout, we will ensure anything not addressed today is followed up on by my team. And finally on Q&A, for our keynote address for Dame Kelly Holmes, you'll get the opportunity to ask questions during that specific session. So please wait to submit those until then. Now, we have all experienced disruption over the course of this unprecedented year, but today we want to ensure we maintain connectivity. As we are live streaming the conference, if you experience any technical problems, please use the email shown here and a member of our team will contact you as quick as they can to help resolve the issue. In the same vein, if we, the home team, experience any technical problems in the live streaming, we will update on our social media channels and website with information on how we are resolving the issue. Talking of social media, I would like to encourage you to get involved by posting your comments, tweeting and retweeting and sharing. And the various handles and hashtags are shown on the screen now. Okay, that is the preamble complete. Now onwards with our exciting agenda. Again, many thanks for joining our conference today. And I'm delighted to say that we have 1,051 delegates signed up this morning, which really does prove that technology is a force multiplier. And it is a clear reflection of the incredible momentum that continues to build across the important partnership between the Ministry of Defence and employers across all sectors. And indeed, it is a brilliant demonstration of the outstanding employer support that exists across the country. Now, there is a great programme for you today, including messages from the Minister for the Armed Forces and the Ministry of Defence's Chief of Defence People, alongside other senior military and pivotally business leaders. And of course, we have the opportunity to explore and hear the truly inspirational Colonel Dame Kelly Holmes. In short, this presents us an opportunity in terms of what we currently collaboratively do, but also what we might do in the future to ensure all the components that are needed to respond to crises work together. And this is often described as whole force approach, or in my military career, it was referred to as the golf bag, with each organisation in the bag bringing a certain and often specific skill set to the delivery of a response. And the planning and execution of the Nightingale Hospital builds are but one, frankly, amazing example of that partnered response in action. As I mentioned before, I would like to very quickly remind or inform everyone of the key tenets of the employer engagement agenda that we in Defence Relationship Management are tasked to deliver as shown here. And the key takeaway for me in regard to today's theme of national resilience is that of relationships, working out how defence and employers can continue to work smarter, more collaboratively, efficiently and seamlessly together to ensure the safety of our nation and its people in tackling crises. Now, as I show here, of particular note in progressing that relationship are the Armed Forces Covenant and the Employer Recognition Scheme. The Covenant because of the sheer scale of the support that it covers across health, housing, employment, education and welfare. And the Recognition Scheme because it is the vehicle that enables the advocacy journey employers take in supporting the defence community. All of the slides and videos will be available after the conference, and I now quickly want to outline what your levels of support are across the Covenant and the Recognition Scheme. First, and as we saw in the video, 2020 was another year of growth and increasing momentum in terms of organisations choosing to sign the Covenant. But as you can see, COVID has naturally impacted on that growth profile. Despite that though, the number of signatories has risen to over 6,500, with the rate of signings continuing to accelerate at about 30 per week. And that is achieved primarily through the advocacy of our existing signatories, many of whom are with us today, because we do not have a business development or sales team function in the DRM teams. Here you can see the breadth of the type and sectors those organisations signing the Covenant come from. And again, despite the pressures COVID-19 has presented, a great example is that the education sector is right towards the top. And they are joined by science and technology organisations. Turning back to our theme, it's great that the relationships in these key areas are growing. It is the educators who teach and nurture the young disruptors and resilience leads of the future. And it is the sciences who keep our nation at the forefront of global technological advancement, the vaccine work being a fantastic example of that activity. And here are the sizes of those organisations. This breaks an often held myth that it is only large organisations who are active in the Covenant space. Far from it. Over 50% of signatories come from the small, medium enterprise community, and a large percentage of them from organisations with only 1 to 9 employees. All of them are pivotal to the defence community, let alone underpinning our GDP at this critical time. Growth in employer recognition scheme participation has also been impressive. The bronze level reflects the same COVID-19 driven change in profile as the AFC signings, but continues to grow nonetheless. Indeed, a newly uploaded AFC template on the gov.uk website means that the pledges made by organisations at the start of their ERS journey are even more focused in their outputs for the defence community. The number of silver award holders is always a fluctuating number because it is the transition level on the way to gold. But we absolutely recognise that some organisations may find achievement of the criteria above the senior level difficult to achieve. And that is fine with us. This is about organisations doing what they can and working collaboratively with Defence to maintain what support they can in terms of their advocacy for the defence community. And finally, gold. The growth in the number of gold ERS holders has been simply phenomenal and is continuing for this year, with the numbers of the currently open expressions of interest for awards being really buoyant. Also this year, we have had a changeover in the Gold Award Association's chair, with Kevin Gartsite from Barclays taking over from Serco's Jamie Black. And in tandem, The GAA steering group members across the country continue to grow in number and in the volume of their outputs, for which heartfelt thanks. And just to confirm, it is now the Gold Award Association, a change made this year as it was felt that Gold alumni perhaps suggested that once Gold was reached, the journey was over, a bit like a graduate finishing their studies. But as we know, this is far from the case, with all Gold holders continuing to advocate at the highest levels. In sum, there has been considerable progress since I addressed this conference last year. You are now doing more for defence than ever before, and I'm confident that our relationships will continue to strengthen, ensuring meaningful partnerships between employers and defence truly does translate to being business as usual. So I'd like to offer my sincere thanks for everything you're doing for this critical agenda. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to tweet, and I very much hope you enjoy the conference. It is now my great pleasure to build on some of what I have covered and to share two messages with you. The first from the Minister for the Armed Forces, James Heappey, MP, who is sadly unable to join us live today for reasons he will explain. And the second message is from the Ministry of Defence's Chief of Defence People, Lieutenant General James Swift. General James is going to focus in particular on the integrated operating concept for 2025 and the role the reserves and the defence community and industry will play in that regard. Over first then to the Minister for the Armed Forces.
Good morning. I'm sorry that I can't be there to speak to you in person. I'm currently in West Africa, where I've been visiting our troops deployed on training teams around the region, and also the troops that are deployed in support of the United Nations mission in Mali. Indeed, in Mali, there are reservists serving, and it's a reminder of the work that our armed forces do, not just at home during these difficult times, but around the world, keeping people safe, making sure that they can lead prosperous lives free from the threat of terror and violence. And that is a great way to put this conference into perspective, because our reservists and the employers that so kindly release them to serve our nation in the armed forces are an absolutely essential part of what the UK's armed forces do to keep us safe both at home and abroad. In the last year, we've seen some amazing examples of reservists stepping up and delivering at a time of enormous national need. Take, for example, Ed Mukhtar. He's a reservist who, for the day job, works for Google Shopping. But when there was a problem with getting PPE to the NHS, he stepped up and brought with him his expertise in e-commerce to help the National Health Service design its very first intelligent distribution system for PPE. It had an enormous effect in the early days of the pandemic, demonstrating so vividly why people with expertise in the outside world, people who are not full-time soldiers, but they are experts in their field who serve as reservists at the weekend, can add such enormous value when they are mobilized at a time of national need. And I want to say thank you to him and the thousands of others who have stepped up, whether that be running vaccination teams around the country, or whether that be filling sandbags when there were floods last spring. Every single one of our reservists that we have used in the UK homeland over the last 12 months has been doing something that has been absolutely essential to getting through this most challenging of years. And of course, all of that is in addition to the stuff that our reservists do year in, year out in the Army, the Navy and the Air Force, serving overseas on operations, again, bringing to bear their enthusiasm, their expertise, and their different way of looking at things. And that's what makes our force so much stronger whenever reservists are part of the mission. Now, I know that doesn't come without cost for the employers who employ these people for the majority of their time. And that's why conferences like the one that you're attending today are so important, so that you can understand our vision for the reserve forces, how we hope that the people that you employ, who also work for us as reservists, can be developed through their military training to add value to you as employers. And I hope that you see that in spades, that whenever you release your people to us, they come back better and they add value in your organisation thereafter. The relationship that the MOD has with the employers of reservists is absolutely essential. Without your support and enthusiasm, we simply could not have a credible reserve that we can use in these moments of huge national importance and when we are operating overseas. So to the reservists in the audience, thank you for your service. Thank you for stepping up at home and abroad again and again whenever our nation has called on you to do so. And to the employers, thank you too. You may not be the one who puts on the uniform and turns up to do military service, but that does not mean that your contribution is any less important. We need you to support us and our reservists, to understand what it is to be a reservist, the demands that that places on the person and their family, and to support them alongside us in doing their duty. And in return, we will try to be as transparent as we can about what we need from your people whenever we need to mobilise them. But the fact that you are willing to release them in the first place is something for which we are enormously grateful. Thank you all very, very much indeed. Enjoy the conference, and I think I'm now handing over to the Chief of Defence People, James Swift.
Good morning. I'm Lieutenant General James Swift, Chief of Defence People, and I lead the development of Defence's policy for reserve forces and cadets. I'm sorry that we can't be here in person today, but there is now light at the end of the tunnel, and I look forward to engaging with many of you in person over the next year. Thank you for giving your time to attend today. The delivery of Defence's reserve force capability demands a huge level of personal commitment from individual reservists. However, delivery of this capability is also reliant on the support of employers. The integrated review is due to be published later this month, followed shortly by the Defence Command Paper and the Reserve Forces 30 review. It would be inappropriate of me to get ahead of ministerial announcements, but I know that many of you are keen to know how these will affect you and your employees, so I'll try to give you a flavour. As CDS's speech highlighted at RUSI in December, the changes heralded by the integrated operating concept are the most significant in a generation. The scale and accelerating pace of change that we're experiencing places unique demands on our workforce. And these demands will see reserve forces play a more integrated role in the future. The changes will require a greater investment in specialist skills, the ability to unlock emerging digital technology, and the requirement to collaboratively work with industry to deliver our objectives. In all these areas, reserves provide a unique and valuable contribution. The Reserve Forces 30 review has been led from the top of Defence, so that it is fully aligned with the wider thinking on the integrated review. Brigadier the Lord Lancaster is its author, and he's worked closely with Major General Simon Brooks Ward and his team throughout to ensure that the interests of both reservists and employers are properly considered, and that the plans for reserves dovetail with broader people transformation initiatives led by my team. The integrated operating concept makes clear that we can no longer rely on our traditional model of organising our armed forces to warfight and adapting for all other tasks. A defining feature of our current environment is that of constant competition. This posture of campaigning and of adopting a graphic equaliser approach to the employment of our capabilities in different domains provides an exciting opportunity for our reserve forces to be used in different ways on a more predictable basis. The nature of reserve forces provides an inherent flexibility both in the skills they contribute and the manner of their employment. The current pandemic has provided an excellent vehicle to test, prove, showcase and develop one part of that which reserves can deliver. And this is the focus of today. In response to COVID-19, our armed forces have demonstrated their resilience, innovation and ingenuity. In particular, our reserve forces have provided a key part of the nation's response to the pandemic. At extremely short notice, around 2,400 reservists were mobilised. Around 400 are still mobilised, whilst locally other reservists continue to provide support via their reserve service days. And it's helpful for me to draw out some key examples that highlight both the value of reserves and provide a signal for ways in which reserves may contribute to wider campaigns and defence tasks in the future. The short notice requirement for mass testing of asymptomatic members of the public in Manchester resulted in the deployment of 82 reservists, led primarily by the RAF, an example of using localised reserves to deliver a rapid increase in the available workforce. A further 90 reservists deployed to Kent to assist in testing lorry drivers. Indeed, it was the Honourable Artillery Company who administered my test in Main Building last week. Our medical reservists are an excellent example of reserves being employed to capitalise on their civilian skills. One specific example is a Royal Naval Lieutenant Commander intelligence officer and expert in zoonosis, which I'm told is the diseases that spread from vertebrate animals to humans. Having actually written a textbook on these diseases, this officer has been advising on their mutation, endemicity, and natural reservoirs. His expertise continues to be critical in assessing the origin of COVID-19. I hope these few examples illustrate what reservists can bring in this sort of crisis and how much defence and the nation owes them. But we also owe huge thanks to you, their employers, who have been key in supporting reserves in their defence role. Given that this is this time last year, none of us really knew what a key worker might be and the types of roles that became critical for an organisation. I think this was an outstanding result. The need to adapt and for employers to understand competing demands on their workforce have reaffirmed the importance of the relationships we have with you. I know I can speak for everyone in the MOD when I say we are hugely grateful for the support you have shown us and continue to show through the relationships you have with us. This is, of course, a partnership, and I have little doubt reservists will have returned to their workplace as better leaders, having been challenged in their reserve roles, problem-solving at pace in often austere and complex environments, whilst building teams from scratch. The experiences we have been through together over the past year have been valuable in forming the work on our integrated review and the contribution of reserve forces. And I look forward to continuing to grow the already deep relationship between the MOD and employers as we move into the future. Thank you.